Hi everybody, my name is Dennis, and what? 3 album reviews in one day? Have you gone mad? Yes, I have. No, I'm just a lazy piece of crap who gets behind in his schedule, and guess what? I'm like, this is my channel, and I can upload however many reviews I want, whenever I want. So guess what? We're getting 3 reviews, one day. I hope you feel special, because you should. So, with all that being said, today we're reviewing the latest record from Tyler the Creator, entitled EARFQUAKE. Now, I consider myself a fan of Tyler the Creator. I think a lot of his early work is great. It could be a bit trying too hard to be edgy at times, but his early work was still really great and showed a lot of promise. I thought Bastard was a really great album, and I think Goblin is criminally underrated. And of course, Wolf is a really good album, and Cherry Bomb has its good moments as well. But I thought his last album, Flower Boy, was the pinnacle of his career. I consider it nothing short of a 10 out of 10 masterpiece through and through. I thought the production was beautifully elegant while still being catchy and amazingly rough at times. I thought the lyrics were absolutely beautiful. I thought they displayed themes of both discovering oneself and attaching on to the things we love and care about and longing for that in such a beautifully strong way. Were just hands down gorgeous. I can listen to that album over and over and over again and never get sick of it because I just love it that much. So I was easily very excited for this album, if you couldn't tell. And even though I don't think it is frankly anywhere near the masterpiece that Flower Boy was, this is by no means a weak album, even in comparison to the rest of the work in his discography. This is, although most akin to Flower Boy, it is unlike anything he's ever done before. It tends to take a much more synthy, while still being kind of gritty approach to things, with rather than a focus on searching for one's own happiness, it searches for love. And it does this in a pretty successful way most of the time, even if the relationships in the songs are not always successful. Where the intro track, Igor's theme, is this really nice opening cut that really does introduce the listener into how the style of the album is going to be. It kind of just gets your mind prepared for what the album's really going to be like. Even though it's nothing all that phenomenal, it's nothing all that really memorable, if I'm being honest, I do think it should be on the album. And it's a pivotal point too, because you can't just throw someone into a completely new sound without some sort of preparation. And to me, this very effectively gets the listener ready for, okay, so this is the kind of style we're working with. And then they're prepared to appreciate the rest of the album like that. I thought the majority of the songs on here were great. Songs like EARFQUAKE were really beautifully produced, had some really sweet, sentimental lyrics about searching for love. Songs like that, and Running Out of Time, where he's contemplating of, as you can see, running out of time to find this love. A Boy Is a Gun being another really great track on the album, where oftentimes love is compared to a gun, where you always want this person by your side. You want them right with you at all times. You want to keep them close to you. You want to love them, and you want to protect them. You want to be there always with them, just like you would have a gun always at your side, always ready for whenever you might need it. But also it uses this as an example of how it can be dangerous, and it can potentially be harmful if not treated with the proper care, both the person and the relationship itself. And I thought this was a really interesting point that contributed to the song quite a bit. I mean, it had a great, beautifully enchanting beat, as many of the other songs on here do. I do think the latter half of the album does improve as the album goes on, because I do think there are a couple of, whether it be generally weak ideas through the album, not really ideas, but really styles that I thought were a bit lackluster, or a couple of songs that were a bit more forgettable. For example, I think the mixing through a lot of the first half of the album is a bit subpar, even on the songs I like quite a bit. Songs like I Think and Running Out of Time, the vocals seem very quiet and almost distant, and not in a like artistic or contemplative way, but it just kind of comes out across as distracting at times. I don't really see the purpose for it. New Magic Wand also has this aspect to it, but even with that, I think New Magic Wand is not that great of a song. I think that this, much like many of the other songs in this album, completely abandoned the deeper voice Tyler, the Creator, we've grown accustomed to over the past 5 albums in his discography, in replace of much more lighter, much more auto-tuned, much more high-pitched vocal performance from Tyler. That I don't think is bad in itself, but it is kind of a jarring change, especially the first few listens in. And even though I think it does work really well on some songs like I Think and Earthquake, it doesn't work as well on something like New Magic Wand or one of the later tracks, I Don't Love You Anymore, where New Magic Wand has a very dark banger beat, and I think it's a really good beat, don't get me wrong. But I think the very light and airy vocals really clash with this, what's in a way that is really distracting, because Flower Boy had these very dark banger moments on the album too, if you remember that album, with there were a couple songs on there like I Ain't Got Time, something like that, where it's very dark, it's very aggressive, but Tyler also brought an equally dark and aggressive and rough flow with it that really did bring itself to the beat in a really great way, and it paired itself well together, and I wish he had brought that back, not just on this song, but on some of the other songs. And it's not completely missing, don't get me wrong. It is present on a few songs here and there, like, for example, the song What's Good. But it really comes up in rare spurts rather than being his consistent voice, as we've grown so accustomed to in the past, like I said. And even though personally I wasn't a huge fan of this change, I do prefer him with his deeper, darker voice. I do respect his decision, and I do think it serves itself well in a lot of cases on here. So I respect his decision, and I think he used it to a really great way. And I can really respect that and enjoy it just as much as I would any of his other stuff, even if I would have preferred he used his deeper voice. But going on from there, again, I think New Magic Wand isn't a bad song, but I do think it just clashes in sound. But I mean, A Boy Is a Gun is another really good song like I was talking about before, but once we hit that song Puppet, from there on the album, I think, gets really beautiful. Puppet being this absolutely phenomenally just, oh my goodness, amazing cut on the album, where he's comparing himself in a relationship to being controlled by a puppet, where it seems like he's finally got this relationship that he wanted through the first half of the album, where he finally got this gun by his side, and now he's realizing the dangers that it has, where he's now being controlled like a puppet. He doesn't have any sort of say in what goes on, and he feels like he doesn't have any control over his own life even. He's just in the hands of another person, and he doesn't like that. And from there on, the album progresses into more of the, I'll call it the breakup phase of the relationship, where on What's Good, he's questioning what's good, you know? Like, is this really everything that I wanted? Is it really as good as I hoped it would be? And to me, that's another just really powerful track on the album. But after this was probably my favorite song. If I'm being honest, it's probably because it's the most like Flower Boy on the album. But it's Gone Gone / Thank You. It's also the longest cut on the album. But I think the synths on this are just absolutely eargasmic. I absolutely love every single note that goes into the song. I think the vocals just melt your heart in the most beautiful way possible. I absolutely adore this track. With the Gone Gone phase being this really beautifully somber yet somewhat nostalgic tone to it, where it almost gives off aesthetically the vibe of just riding off into a sunset, where you're sad that something is over, but you're also glad that it happened in a way. And it's just this really, really beautiful cut. And I think that aesthetic plays really great into the message of the song, where Gone Gone talks about how he's finally accepted that he needs to leave this relationship. He needs to be gone from it. And then the thank you section of that covers the last minute or two of the song. It's thanking this person for giving him this learning opportunity, thanking them for allowing him to grow as a person. And it's this really beautiful cut that I think the music gives the exact same message that the lyrics do, and the ability to create that parallel is a highly difficult thing to do in music, and to do it to such an amazing extent here is just absolutely phenomenal. So yes, the instrumentals are most like Flower Boy on here, but to me there's so much more to it than that. And to me, this is the kind of thing that is just as good as any cut off of Flower Boy, if I'm being honest. Then from there, the song I Don't Love You Anymore. I do like what this song conveys, but I do think this kind of screechy, I don't love you anymore, I don't love you anymore, isn't all that great. It's a solid song again. There weren't really any bad songs on here. I just found that very almost screechy hook at times to be a bit grating. I do think the beat is still good, don't get me wrong. I think it, once again, has this really sweet sentiment to it, the instrumental, but I just don't really care for that vocal line there too much. But then the song at the end, Are We Still Friends, caps off this whole story of love and loss, where he eventually goes through this whole difficult relationship process and realizes this isn't for me. And as we go into Are We Still Friends, he realizes, hey, this didn't work in a romantic way, but are we still friends? You know, he really wants this friendship still, because he clearly still loves this person, even if no longer in a romantic way. And even though the song does repeat that line of the title, Are We Still Friends, many times over, to me it just emphasizes the begging nature of it. He's gone through so much with this person, he doesn't want to just give them up, so are we still friends? Are we still friends? And I think the vocals there, they don't use that higher pitch thing, but they take this slightly darker approach to things. So, like, are we still friends? And it's just this really touching moment that I think caps off the album in such a phenomenal way. I think Are We Still Friends is how you close an album. So overall, I thought this album was great. I wasn't really sure what to expect from it, but it definitely exceeded the expectations I had. Again, I do have some personal qualms with it, whether it be in the style of not the lyrics, but the style of vocals. And even though I didn't mention earlier, some of the songs on here predominantly don't feature Tyler, the Creator, if I'm being honest. Like something like Earthquake, Tyler, the Creator, really doesn't show up on it that much until the very end. And even though I still think it's a great song, don't get me wrong, I mean, Playboi Carti does his thing great here. There was another song with Kanye on it, and even though Tyler did take up the majority of that song, I did think Kanye's part was really nice. I forgot to mention that earlier. But I do wish Tyler just showed himself a bit more at times. I wish that he was the star of this show. And he definitely was the star at times, but I wish it was a bit more consistent, because it almost felt like he was the feature occasionally. I didn't really like that as much. it didn't really affect my enjoyment of too many songs in particular. It was just kind of something I noticed generally across the album listening to it. So this is not a perfect album, and it does have its fair share of flaws. But it is a beautifully told story about love, loss, and relationships. Its lyrics are amazing. Its instrumentals are smooth, very synth-heavy, but really enchanting at times. And the vocals, again, even though I would have preferred him to use that deeper, rappier part at times. I mean, granted, we do have bangers like What's Good on here. I mean, that was easily the best banger on the album. But I do wish we could have gotten some more of that same aggression in the album some more. And again, I feel like a lot of this is less things that are wrong with the album and more just what I wanted. So I don't really feel it's fair to count that against the album too much. But again, this is all my personal opinion, so I can't really help how I feel on some things. But still, really great album. I'm feeling a solid 8 on it. Definitely check it out. It's a really impressive listen through and through. Be sure to tell me how wrong my opinion is as always, and I'll see you in the next review. And don't worry, there will not be a 4th review today. You're off the hook. You're not that special.